Hey, it's Nikki. Before we start the show, I wanted to invite you to download a free resource that I put together for you as the listener. This is my gift to you. You can get it right now. It is the 17 buying signals. Now, I wrote a whole book about buying signals, and I wanted to put it into a really simple format that you can have at your fingertips or in front of you whenever you want to. So I took out the 17 buying signals from the book, put them on a simple PDF, also gave you the kind of what to do when you get a buying signal, and explain what a buying signal is. So that PDF is available for you as a listener to go and download right now by going to yoursalesmaven.com/17. That's yoursalesmaven.com/17 so that you can start acting on these buying signals and closing more business. All right, when you're ready, let's start the show.
Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Rausch will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. Today's episode is part of our Mastering Excellence series. This is where I bring in some of my concepts, my background in neuro-linguistic programming. And this particular concept is, how do you understand the structure of excellence? When you can understand how somebody is excelling in their life or their business on a particular topic, and we can break down what their structure is, you can then incorporate that structure into your own life and or business and get similar results. So I'm super excited to bring to you this topic today, where we're going to be talking about how do you establish and maintain a positive reputation in the marketplace. Like, that's super important, right? We all want a positive reputation in the marketplace. That's going to help you attract your ideal clients. It's also going to really establish you as a credible source. So we are going to be talking today with my good friend, Julie Fry. You've probably heard me talk about her on the podcast before. But if you haven't heard about Julie, or if you haven't listened to some of the episodes that she's been on previously with me, then here's a little bit about her background. Julie Fry is the founder of Your Expert Guest. It's a podcast guest booking agency for thought leaders that want visibility without spending hours on social media. She is passionate about the magic that can happen in your business when you connect with the right podcast and host. Julie and her team help entrepreneurs with everything they need to attract new clients from their podcast guest appearances. Julie Fry, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Nikki. I'm thrilled to be here.
We were talking about this before we hit record. Julie is officially the most featured person on the podcast because this is her third appearance in 2 years. That's amazing. Thank you for coming
I was
back.
Going for that title too.
If anybody should earn that title, it's you. I'm such a big fan of yours. You have made a tremendous difference in my life and in my business. Meeting you, I don't even know how many years ago now, was one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel exactly the same, Nikki. And I can tell you, I think we met in 2014. Is that possible?
Oh my goodness. I knew it was really early in my business. We had a mutual, or I actually spoke at a group, and there was a woman sitting in the room who said, do you ever speak at other events or something? And I said, I do. And she was like, I know somebody who puts on events and I'm going to recommend you. And I think that's how we originally got connected.
I think it might be. That? Yeah, I think it might be. But yeah, I remember you spoke in August of 2014 at our event in Bellevue.
Yes, that was the first of many. I think I ended up speaking at the time. You had a different business. And I think I don't even know how many times I spoke to you.
Yeah, I'd have to look back, but I'm sure it's in the tens. It's in the dozens.
Yeah, it probably is, whether it's virtual or in person, but so many opportunities. You've opened so many doors. And I think you are the ideal person for us to have this conversation today, this kind of NLP structure around establishing and maintaining a positive reputation. Because when I think of you, I think that is who, like the way you show up in your business with people that you meet, like that is who I think most of us want to be. Like you are so loving, so giving. And I just have never heard a bad word spoke about you. Not that I would probably.
You just aren't spending time around the right people.
I don't think that's true though. Well, first of all, it would be hard for someone to say something about you in front of me because I would definitely take offense to that. But I was just actually recently on the podcast, there's an interview with Natalie Ekdahl, and you opened that door for me. And it was a game changer in my business for you to open that door. And that is kind of like, I always say, this is why it's so great to use your network, ask for people to make introductions for you, because you get to ride the coattails of the credibility that they have with the person they're introducing you to. So when you, who have this amazing reputation in the market, are willing to open that door, the other person was like, of course I want to meet Nikki because I know how awesome Julie is. Like that, I just think it's such a good example of who you are and how you show up.
Well, wow. Can we just stay on this recording all day long?
Well, I want to dive into this with you because I really think that this is one of those unconscious competence for you. And so if you're willing to let me ask you these very NLP questions to dig into how you kind of show up and establish this and maintain it in the marketplace.
Would love to. Okay. I would love to. Let's do it.
Okay. So here we go. So my first question is, imagine that I stand in for you for a day. So I get to take on your persona. I'm like stepping into your shoes. What would I have to do, or how would I have to think or behave like you in order to really build a business and establish and maintain a positive reputation?
Okay. So one of the ways that I think I show up is even though I'm a Leo, I don't love the spotlight. So I am always thinking about other people and how to support them. So I tend to bring that approach to memberships that I'm in. Like I'm thinking about Sales Maven Society. If I see somebody ask a question that I can provide assistance or help or a resource. I just before this was on a coaching call for another group program that I'm in. And I sometimes feel like I'm overstepping my bounds of perhaps the lead coach, because I'm always like, ooh, I have something I want to add. So I'm always thinking about like, how can I help other people? How can I be a resource? So I feel like that's one of my guiding principles is whether it's business or personal, I tend to think about like, oh, how can I help?
So I think that is a really important structure piece that Julie just gave us kind of some insight to, that like I'm asking her about establishing and maintaining a positive reputation, and none of her answer was about herself. It was about how can I help and support other people, which I do think is super important in how people then look to you. Like I give this example when I teach about networking, and I always say like, act as if it's your event and your job is to make other people feel comfortable, because it raises your credibility in the room. And so
you're really good at that.
Here's one way to raise your credibility: support other people. Like that's, I feel like, okay, we could probably end the conversation right there, but I know we're going to go deeper. So thank you for that gold nugget.
I think that you tend to attract a lot of people who also feel that way. I mean, I think about a lot of the other members of the Sales Maven Society, and a number of people come to mind that are usually very giving and very helpful and just, want to support other people.
We do have an amazing community that is very, very supportive. That is super true. And I think some of those lessons I think I've learned from being in the group like that you had prior to the business that you have now, this networking group that was really so instrumental in the growth of my business, that it was this place to show up and be supportive and help others. And by doing that, it was like that reciprocity, like things just keep coming back and coming back as a result of it. So, okay. So when you're thinking about establishing and maintaining a positive reputation, what specifically would I have to do to behave like you?
One of the things that I think is really important is to do what you say you're going to do. That is one of the first things that comes to mind. So if you say, in a sales situation that, I'll follow up with you by the end of the week if I don't hear something, you follow up. If you tell a friend that you're going to help her paint her apartment and, on a weekend, like you show up and you actually do it. So that's something that has always been one of my kind of core beliefs, is to do what I say I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm. I always wonder about the people that like say it and then they act like they didn't say it. Like, did they actually forget, or is that a strategy? Like, I always wonder about that. Okay. So do what you say you're going to do. And so so I want a follow-up question to that. So how do you keep from then overcommitting yourself to things, like, so that you can stay in integrity and do what you say you're going to do?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I know that I have overcommitted myself, and then that has led to stress and burnout. So I think you learn through life lessons, and, I've lived several decades now and have, I think, hopefully, knock on wood, finally figured out how to not overcommit myself. So I think that everybody has to learn that lesson on their own. I think that the peak years for that are probably if you have kids, when your kids are in grade school and there's lots of pressure to volunteer and do all of the other things to keep your life running. So that was when I tended to overcommit myself. So it's definitely something to be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are your goals when it comes to thinking about your reputation in the market, and having a positive reputation?
Well, I will say that it kind of comes back to my principles of doing the right thing, doing what I say I'm going to do, and supporting others and being helpful. But one other piece that comes to mind around that is, like, one of my vision for my company is to be the most passionately referred podcasting guest agency out there. So referrals come from being a person who stands in integrity. So I think that that's what really drives me, is I want to show up from a place of integrity and also have other people recognize that for themselves about me.
Okay. So I feel like she just really broke it down. That was so good, Julie. All right. So I'm going to ask you just to check in. So your goals then are to show up and do the right thing, to be helpful, to support others, and that you have established a vision for your business, that it is passionately referred, that people feel passionate about referring the business. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, hopefully you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking like, okay, so if I'm thinking about my reputation, ask yourself, are you doing the right thing? When's the last time you were helpful? Who are you showing support to? And do you have this vision about referrals and how important that is to your business? Do you want people to feel passionate about referring you in the marketplace? And that is going to help you establish and maintain a positive reputation. That was like a masterclass that you just gave us, Julie.
Well, you're good at asking great questions and summarizing.
That's an NLP technique known as backtracking, people. I teach that.
Well, you're really good. You're really good.
Thank you so much.
I didn't know what any of these questions were going to be beforehand. So
yes, I don't tell anybody about
truly off the cuff.
And sometimes I have in my mind what I want to ask them about, like what I'm doing the Mastering Excellence series. So, but then I kind of lay it out like right before we start so that they don't have any time to prepare. It's intentional. And also because I fly by the seat of my pants. Okay. So my next kind of follow-up question. So now that we've reviewed the goals, how do you know you're achieving the goals?
Well, so if I think about it from a business standpoint, to be the most passionately referred podcast guesting agency, I would look at, are we getting referred? So that makes it really easy when it's tied to a particular business goal. So I have to be honest and say, I don't have metrics that I say, okay, well, are we getting 3 referrals a week? Does that mean that we're the most passionately referred? I just know that if we're not getting any referrals, then that means we're not meeting the goal, and I'm not meeting my personal goals. But what I do see is that I'm getting tagged in Facebook groups. I'm getting virtual introductions via both clients and people that I've, met online or at events, or we know each other from years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting introductions to people that might be interested in using our services. So that's my kind of anecdotal barometer of, yes, I think that I'm meeting my goals.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like this idea of so as the listener, when you're thinking about, are you achieving your goal, do you have a goal in mind in regards to establishing and maintaining a positive reputation that has some kind of benchmark or trackability to it? Not that, Julie's saying she doesn't have a metric that she's not necessarily measuring, but I'm assuming, Julie, that you're asking people when they're getting on discovery calls with you, how did you hear about us?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
Is the majority of the time the answer, so-and-so referred me?
Absolutely. Or last week, I did a training for a business group. And so several people booked discovery calls. So I know that they came from that training. Mm-hmm. But yes, I always ask people, and there's a form on our website when they book a call to let us know where they came from.
Okay. So I'm going to give you another question kind of around this. We're sticking with goals here for a second. Is what do you actually do to reach the goal of being the most passionately referred podcast guesting agency? Did I say it right?
You did.
Okay. So what do you actually do?
What am I doing to reach that goal? So we have our company values identified, and that is something that is really important to me, that our team members know what they are. They're on our website. And I think by doing business with people that are aware of what your values are, you're tending to attract people that have similar values. So I think that by doing business with people that we share the same philosophy about what's important to us, that helps with continuing to be referred. And again, showing up from a place of integrity, being of service. When you do that for other people, they tend to want to do the same for you. So that reciprocity piece mm-hmm. is that if we've done a good job for them, then they want to refer us to other people.
I think reciprocity is one of my favorite all-time words.
Isn't it so great? Except it's a little hard to say.
It is a little hard to say. I have certain words that I cannot say, but that one I can say it, but I have to think about it. So I like this idea of how you're reaching your goals regarding maintaining and establishing and maintaining a positive reputation in the marketplace is that you clearly have outlined your values. You've identified them. You make sure that your team is aware of them, and you go so far as to post them on your website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're on any sort of job descriptions. When somebody applies for a position here, it's in the application.
I love that. So clear that everywhere you are, that whether you think you have this, because I think you even said, I don't know that I have the way that you're measuring it, but yet you are actively doing this.
I've just never thought about it this way. Now I'm kind of patting myself on the back, oh, wow, look at me. I'm actually doing this right. Kind of.
That's what's known as unconscious competence. So I love it so much. Okay. All right. So we know now what you actually do. How do you know that it's time to pay attention to establishing and maintaining a positive reputation in the market?
I think that when you have a business and once you've validated your business concept, people have actually hired you and you have paying clients, And if one of your goals is to grow and get more visible, then that's the time that you really need to make sure that you're paying attention to your reputation management and, how are you showing up? How are you being perceived?
Perfect. Okay. So how you know it's time to pay attention is that if your goal is to grow, that this is a part of the thought process, that this is something you pay attention to.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. How do you know that you've accomplished establishing and maintaining a positive reputation?
I think that when it's never done, right? You're never like, okay, box checked. I've got my reputation under control. It's an ongoing process. I think that how you know when you're on the right track and when you're on the path is, again, that referrals piece. Are you continuing to get referrals for your business? Are people tagging you on LinkedIn or in Facebook groups? Are you getting those virtual introductions over email to other people, whether it's potential clients or collaborators, or even just people that they think that the two of you would connect? So I think that is a indicator of that you're on the right path.
So then the follow-up question to that is, how do you know when to stop?
You never stop.
You never stop.
This is not something that you can say it's done. You can't stop.
Yeah.
You have to keep doing the right things, which is, being helpful and showing up from a place of integrity.
Okay. So many good things in here. So we actually got through these questions pretty fast because this is Julie kind of in a nutshell. Like whether you think you are very clear, you are very clear when you speak. And your process is so right there for us. So I feel like you might want to go back and re-listen to this podcast episode and take notes if you didn't this first time around, because Julie really did break it down. And just to kind of go back, I was taking a ton of notes while she's talking too. The idea here is making sure that you're showing up, you're doing the right thing, that you're being helpful, that you're supporting others, and that you have some type of a vision around this piece around referrals, because that is going to help you measure what is your reputation in the market. Are you maintaining it? Have you established it? And that that it's time to really pay attention to it when your goal is to grow in your business. So there's just so much good stuff here. Thank you so much for this. Now, if you're willing, I forgot to tell you that I was going to do this. I have a little bit of like the little something extra section. So we can get to know Julie a little bit more than just hearing her bio, although you've heard her on the show a couple times. But here's my, I actually want to ask you a bunch of these questions. So we'll see.
Please. I love fun questions.
Okay. Who inspires you right now?
So I'm reading a book by a woman named Catherine Price. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't heard of her, she wrote the book, How to Break Up with Your Phone. And her newer book is called The Power of Fun, How to Start Living Again, or How to Start Enjoying Life. And I feel like fun is one of my core values, and I strive to incorporate fun into every day. Like I have fun scheduled in my week, but this book is pretty mind-blowing in terms of she talks about true fun and how a lot of what is kind of commonplace in our society right now, social media and just kind of the tasks of daily life kind of keep you away from having true fun. And anyway, I adore her and I feel like I want to be her best friend. So that is really who's inspiring me right now. Catherine Price.
I love that.
If you're listening, Catherine, hit me up. Let's be friends.
You're so clear about things like this. So I know, like, you're not seeing Julie on camera, but I'm seeing her on camera. And behind her is a picture of Conan O'Brien, who you love and aspire to meet someday. And so you have his picture in your background. So people will ask you about it. Is that true?
Yes, it is true. And it surprises me how infrequently people ask me about it. Maybe they don't know who that is. They're just like, because it sort of does look like a guy with a mohawk, actually, the painting. So
it's a little like caricature.
It's caricature. Mm-hmm.
That's a word I have a hard time saying. But right next to it, it says, do more of what makes you happy, which I love.
Yeah. Which hopefully they don't think that means like do more of what makes you, and then the Conan. My kids will often say, Mom, you love Conan. Or do you wish you married him instead of dad?
Probably depends on the day.
Sometimes.
I love it. And I also love that you're clearly, letting Catherine know that you're ready to be her friend. And Catherine, you would be lucky if first of all, if you're listening to my podcast, thank you. And you would be lucky to call Julie a friend. I feel so incredibly blessed to call you my friend.
Oh my gosh, so funny.
How do you celebrate your wins?
Like many people, I'm not the best at celebrating my wins, but I am getting better at documenting them. So at the end of every year, I write them down. I have a Google Drive document that's just called, wins, like 2021 wins. And I like to look at it because then it makes me feel like, oh yeah, I did that. And then it also helps with goal setting. So I would love to maybe start doing that on a quarterly basis, but I haven't done that yet. So, and I don't really have a good carrot for rewarding myself when I do get the wins. It's kind of enough for me to be like, oh, I did that and feel good about it.
Yeah.
I will say though, when I cook something really, really good, I made some gluten-free cupcakes from scratch, which I never make baked goods from scratch, but I made some this weekend and they were really good. So I, again, patted myself on the back, talked about how good they were, told my family, aren't these so good? You're so lucky. So I have no problem patting myself on the back when I feel like I did a good job.
That's awesome. Well, I like that you pat yourself on the back because some of us don't even remember to do that sometimes.
Yeah. So you gotta reach that arm around and pat yourself.
Yeah. Heck yeah. What's one thing people would be surprised to learn about you?
This is one thing I know that people are often surprised about, that I was extremely shy when I was a kid. So shy that when the teacher would call on me in class, I would turn bright red, just get flushed and want to shrink into a little turtle shell. I was so shy.
That makes my heart hurt for you. And then look at you now. What do you think was the transition? Because would you describe yourself as shy today?
No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
And I feel like I started breaking out of it in high school, but when I was in grade school, I was incredibly shy. Yeah.
I actually was too, but I still describe myself as shy. I feel really shy in a lot of situations. Which
is surprising. When you have said that to me before, I'm like, no way. You're not shy.
I'd rather sit in the corner and watch people than have to engage.
That is fun. And there are definitely times when I do that.
Yeah. Although I know it's not good for my business, so I don't let myself do it. But yeah, I'd rather be kind of shy. Okay. What's something exciting going on in your business right now?
Gosh, I thought you were going to say something that you look forward to.
Well, you can answer whatever question you want. So please.
First I'll give the business and then I'll give the personal.
Okay.
So, in my business, so we have grown to a team of 4, which is really awesome.
Wow.
And it gives us more capacity to serve more clients. Mm-hmm. So that has been really fun. So I've been busy on a lot of discovery calls, which is super fun. And we also launched a new offering, which is, so the majority of our client work is done for you service. So it's doing all of the work to get people on podcasts so that all they have to do is show up and do the interview. The other side of that is for people that may not have the budget for that or want to do it themselves or hand off the pitching to somebody else on their team. So we have a podcast guest intensive where we're training people on everything from start to finish on getting booked on the Right Fit podcast. And we give them a list of 20 right fit shows for them with contact information or how to go about the booking process. So that's something that we launched at the beginning of the year, which has been really fun.
Is it you could sign up for it at any time, or is it okay?
Well, I offer two of them a month, but yes, it's ongoing.
Wow. That's an awesome offer for somebody who maybe doesn't want you to pitch. Although I feel like as one of your clients, who wouldn't want you to pitch?
Yes.
I'm just going to take this opportunity. I know I've shared about you on the podcast before, but if you're listening, Julie has been my pitcher now for a year and a
little over a year.
Okay. And she gets me on podcasts. And when I get on, and like, she's not joking, I literally just show up. I mean, I listen to the podcast before I go on, but like, I don't do any of the filling out the paperwork. I don't write the pitch. Julie's team and Julie do all of that for me. And guesting for me is my number one source of lead generation in my business, podcast guesting. So it's a big part of my business. And it's so awesome to just see, oh, I have a podcast today with so-and-so, and here's the link. And Julie's already like given me all the information, and they already have my bio and my headshot and all of that stuff when I show up. So I just get to show up and be the best version of me. I don't feel exhausted or overwhelmed by any of the process and procedure to getting on a podcast. It's amazing. And you are amazing at it. And what I was going to say is, oftentimes when I show up, people will say, you're the only person I've ever had on my show that I didn't know beforehand because your pitch was so good. And that is 100% you and your team, because I didn't write that pitch. You did.
Well, I take a page from your book, which is so for those of you that are pitching yourselves or thinking about pitching yourselves, always do it from the context of what value you're going to provide the host's audience. So Nikki always says, like, when you write an email, reread it and look at how many eyes you have in your pitch. Because again, when you make a pitch all about yourself, that's going to turn off a podcast host. Even if you're great and amazing, which of course you are, you still need to flip it and write the pitch from the standpoint of that you understand the host audience. How are you going to show up and deliver value, and what are they going to get out of the interview? So those would be my pitching tips.
Those are really good tips. And kind of the whole concept of this podcast episode of like establishing and maintaining a positive reputation in the marketplace. This is why it's super important that if your reputation is important to you, and I hope it is, if you've listened to this podcast, I'm going to guess it is, that you don't just let anybody pitch you. It needs to be somebody who does these things that you do. Or if you're going to just say like to your assistant, go pitch me to 100 podcasts, that assistant better be trained, because they are establishing a reputation for you by what they're sending. And if that message is a turnoff to the guest or to the host or to the person who's receiving those, like,
it reflects poorly on you. In fact, I was having a conversation with Melanie Benson yesterday, who I know you know as well. She's awesome. Yeah. But yeah, we were talking about how, as a podcaster, she gets lots of pitches and lots of bad pitches, and she'll get them from either a VA or even an agency that is doing kind of a spammy templated pitch that's not representing their client in the best light. And so that reflects poorly on the client. And it's a really big missed opportunity. So just something to keep in mind, whether you're hiring an agency or a VA. There are lots of courses out there that you can have people take. We'd be happy to show your VA how to do it. But like, before you hire somebody, ask for a sample pitch, ask for testimonials, ask to speak to their existing clients, and then actually talk to them. So you get a sense of what their experience was like working with that agency or with that VA to get you pitched.
I feel like you just gave us a little masterclass there too. Thank you so much for sharing those tips. Like, Julie is so good at what she does, and her team, they're amazing. Okay. So you were also going to share what's something exciting for you right now that wasn't business related.
Well, so it's more just fun. Okay. I heard on another podcast about an app called Swimply. So it's like simply, but swim. Swimply. Yeah. Swimply. And it's like Airbnb for swimming pools. So I love the water. And so I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I'm going to look up and see if there's any pools in my area. And so I put in our zip code, and the first pool that came up was in Des Moines, which is the town like 5 minutes from me. And the listing said 95-degree oasis. And the pictures of this pool are just beautiful. It's got this cool outdoor seating area that has lots of heat lamps and a wood burning fireplace. And it was beautiful. So I booked it and went and swam on, like a 40-degree day in this 95-degree pool. And it was so fun. So I booked it again. And I just this is the greatest thing ever. So that's my fun thing that I'm excited about, having these swims in 95-degree water in the winter outside.
I totally I'm going to go check out this app. One of my aspirations is since I was a real little girl, I've always wanted a pool. I love being in the water. And I've always wanted a pool, and everybody always says pools they're so expensive. It's so ridiculous. Especially living in Washington, why would you want a pool? It rains all the time, blah, blah, blah. And then now that I'm in Boise, I'm oh, I really want a pool.
Yeah. Check it out. I bet you there are some pools on there. I'm noticing as I'm looking, a lot of them say that they'll be opening in, March, April, May, once the weather starts getting a little bit nicer. But there are a few that are open now. They just crank up the heat.
So awesome. All right. Last question for you is, how can a person listening right now connect with you?
They can go to yourexpertguest.com and they can schedule a call with me from there, send an email. Go to the website. Would love to hear from you.
Definitely check her out. If podcast guesting is something you're interested in doing, either hire her to do that service of how to learn how to really pitch yourself properly, or hire her team, her agency to do it for you. It will be a game changer in your business. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for saying yes. I'm sure I'll have you back. I'll have you back on for something else.
We'll do an episode talking about things that are the Airbnb of blankety blank, because apparently I love that.
That's awesome. We totally should. All right. And for you, the listener, thank you so much for being here. I am so, so grateful every single time I get to see or hear from one of you of something that you've taken away from the show. These episodes for Mastering Excellence have gone over really well. The downloads, you guys are showing me that you really love these episodes. So I'm going to continue to bring them to you. Thank you for being here. If we haven't connected yet on social media, I tend to hang out on LinkedIn and on Instagram. You can find me under Nikki Rausch or Sales Maven or Your Sales Maven as well. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.